up there, tap on that red banner at the top of the screen. You can also check the chat area. If you need assistance, please let us know. This is a large class this evening, like many of our classes, so we do want to make sure that you have everything. I'll be reviewing how to receive CE credit here shortly. All right, so in your course folder, you'll see this document, how to obtain CE credit. And we recommend that you follow along. The quiz is available to you right now, and you'll see it in the chat area. I'll repost it for you, but it's dentalceacademy.com/quiz, or you can go to our website and tap on quiz in the navigation bar. If you follow along tonight, I'll be giving a passcode at the end of Stephanie's presentation. And that passcode you'll enter into the quiz, hit submit, and you're done. And otherwise, you have 7 days to complete, and you have multiple attempts. So no big deal, but we recommend getting it done sooner than later. We'll be presenting 1 hour, a continuing education course, followed by a brief product presentation by Curve Dental and Dental City. The product presentation is promotional. It is not required for CE credit. However, Dental City is offering a complimentary box of gloves for attending their presentation. So stay on and you'll get a nice complimentary gift. Again, the passcode I'll announce at the end, and to request assistance, there is the link for you. And then disclosure. So Dental CE Academy is required by your dental board and AGD PACE to monitor and record your attendance this evening, and we use software to do so. We recommend that you're on a stable internet connection and that you have plenty of charge on your phone. In the event you lose power or whatever, use that link that we've sent you to re-enter the course. If you have any issues, you can always type in the chat area for us. We do recommend using Chrome browser or an up-to-date Safari browser. And if you do have an issue with audio or video, again, log out and log back in. We do have an engineer in every one of our courses, so if you're experiencing an issue, it is probably on your side. So please make sure that you, again, have plenty of charge. Stephanie, do you want to go ahead and screen? Oh, we're going to go ahead and use what we have here. That's right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce you all to Stephanie Schoenrock. She is a dynamic leader in the dental industry, known for her innovative solutions to procurement and implementation challenges. As a founding member of Cavarata Consulting Group, she helps DSOs drive efficiency and measurable growth. So Stephanie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Curve Dental and Dental City for supporting this course this evening.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with Dental CE Academy and to talk about procurement tonight, purchasing for not only group practices, emerging group practice, small group practice, but certainly all of the KPIs that we'll talk about can be applied at the private practice level. And so it's exciting to be here tonight. I know I'm competing with a lot of Americans that are sitting at the kitchen table tonight working on their taxes. And so this is a nice way to, just as families are checking the financial health of their family finances, right? KPIs shed light to the financial efficacy of the dental practice. So it's an honor to be here tonight. I work in fractional procurement, and I think we covered this on the introduction. So thank you to Curve and Dental City. So this session is going to explore the different KPIs that help measure and enhance procurement efficiency while aligning with operational goals to drive better cost control and smart resource management. The learning objectives are to identify some of the key KPIs, understand how variable overhead costs reflect efficiency and the health of your practice. Variable overhead fluctuates with the volume of patient care or fluctuates with the volume of production. So even consistent patient care affects procurement costs. We're going to compress some product categories within purchasing behavior to show how you can optimize your inventory management, and that trickles over into reducing team stress and reducing cost and waste. It's less items to unpack, store, inventory, and then learn. So it tends to be easier on the staff when you compress your products to less SKUs over time. And then we'll talk about implementing best practices along the way, along the presentation, for monitoring and evaluating your purchasing strategies. So jumping right in for key procurement KPIs. I know my daughters were listening to me practice this, and they were trying to guess what KPI stood for. And one of them got pretty close. She said, "Does it stand for key points in time?" I said, well, if in time was one word and not two, yes, it could possibly apply, right? And so KPIs allow us to do spot checks of financial performance and different metrics along the journey to efficiency. And similar to, for example, a weight loss journey, weighing yourself once and looking at a number or a KPI as one single point can give you an idea of maybe where you are against averages, against larger cohorts of the country, for example, weight of a woman who's a certain age and a certain height. And that can all be very meaningful, but periodic check-ins over time really reveal ups and downs and improvements that you can't see by just looking at one metric in one moment. So I'll say it a couple times through the presentation, but KPIs don't have to be complex. You don't have to track 100 of them. They just need to be tracked and tracked consistently. So you can start out simple and add additional KPIs as you get more practice and feel like you're empowered with the results of each one. So some key procurement KPIs that operators use: reduce unnecessary expenses and inevitably improve the bottom line. But let's talk about a couple of the ones that might be top of mind to most people attending. A lot of practices are used to bidding out their top 100 or their top 50, even their top 10 supply items periodically. It might be once a year, it might be every 6 months. It's a good practice because even though your intentions might not be to change any of the products, it's just a good pulse on the market for where your pricing is. And over time, talking about those spot checks, if you're growing, seeing more patients, adding a doctor, adding an operatory, et cetera, adding a practice even, you'll notice that the quantities, of course, of your top spend items will improve, will grow, and then you can have those conversations and check your price against quantities that the vendors are offering. So it's very common for reps to walk in the door and ask for an opportunity to win the business and try to earn your business, and often ask for your top 50 or top 100 list. Many of you on this call have probably experienced that a couple times already in your career. A second best practice on price is to consider switching vendors when you do those spot checks, when better rates are available or better prices are available. You can also consult your distributor, and this is one that some people forget about. So you might have a competitor walk in the door and give you an improved price on half of the top 50 items that you have today in your supplies. However, don't forget about sitting down with the distributor and vendors that you currently already have, because a lot of them have cost savings recommendations within their product lines that you might not be buying. So for example, there could be a good, better, and best nitrile glove, and you might be buying the best one. So if another vendor comes in and tells you their nitrile is, let's say, $3 less a box, and you think this is great, I've just uncovered a savings of $3 a box for however many quantity of boxes that your practice is purchasing, but it might not be meaningful, or it could be more meaningful, rather stated, if you talk to your existing distributor and try a good or a better glove, because you're not quite sure exactly on the quality. Now, there's ways around that, of course, but I just wanted to emphasize to include your existing distributor partner when you're shopping for different prices, because sometimes there's different tiers of products and even completely different lines of product that your distributor carries that you might not be purchasing, and just for plain oversight, just haven't considered in the past. That can represent a lot of savings to you. And then the last one I threw in here was to talk about alternative equipment options to align with your budget. There are so many changes in the industry happening with intraoral cameras, sensors, for example, moving to subscription models, intraoral scanners, just different manufacturers entering the space. And so even on equipment, so I know tonight's about supplies, but sometimes hand pieces, smaller pieces of equipment kind of fall into that supply budget and spend. And so I challenge everyone to stay open-minded, to take a look at what the market's offering, and not just what you have to replace, but see what is out there that's new, because there's new offerings in these areas every day. Regular overhead evaluation and measurement can help you maintain cost control and align your variable expenses, right? Your moving expenses like supplies and lab. And tracking this information consistently provides a clear picture of the practice performance and areas where you can capture savings. So again, KPIs don't have to be complex, they just need to be tracked. One way that practices purchase is they align their schedule, the upcoming schedule, with what they need to purchase. Another way practices look at it is they look in the past and they say, what did we purchase last month? What did we purchase in the last trailing 3 months on average? And they kind of align, and they say, well, this is about what we see. This is how many new patients we see. This is how many hygiene patients, how many implant patients, et cetera. But aligning with your schedule through your existing practice management system can really help refine what you need to buy moving forward. And when it's tucked into a thoughtful plan of historically what you've used, maybe on disposables and infection control, and then you look ahead to how many patients you have coming in per procedure, you can really narrow in a better purchasing strategy for your practice. You can gather up procedural counts by working with your office manager. You can utilize reports in your practice management system, and I'll show you a couple examples of that. Built-in reporting can be quick. It can be just a couple clicks within your reporting function, so it doesn't have to slow you down. And it can summarize upcoming procedures by type, and it can improve the accuracy of your planning. A lot of people think of a surgical treatment coordinator that sits down and takes a look at, for example, upcoming surgeries over the next, say, 2 or 3 weeks. And they might be buying implants or regenerative materials or biologics for those surgeries. And they want to make real sure that they have the right implant selection on hand for the doctor. They want to make sure that they've got a couple different biologics handy, depending on the condition of the bone and the soft tissue and what the doctor might run into. And so there's some real thoughtful planning, because those are procedures that tend to be more expensive, and they're just more moving parts. And so you don't want to be in the middle of the surgery and realize you don't have something that you need for the patient's procedure. I would say to take a look at that same sort of philosophy with your supplies and your schedule. So it might be predictive, and you're trying to have kind of a summative approach to what you see in the future, but it can really help in several different ways. And I'll show you an example of that. So here's a report by Curve Insights, showing upcoming patients by procedure. This is pretty common report to pull in your practice management. So forward-looking. I know this is small. Hopefully you can see it on the left hand, the first box. You can select a time frame. So it could be this month, April, or it could be next month. It could be a forward-looking, 4 to 8 weeks for your purchasing. And you can even pull it up by procedure code. So here we've got prophy patients coming up this month. And then to the right, you have the detail of patients by procedure. So you've got surgical patients, you've got prophy patients, et cetera. So if you were sitting down about to either meet with, for example, an implant vendor, just to follow this example through, you could see that maybe you have 12 patients coming in May for implants, and you might only have 10 on the shelf, and you might want a couple different sizes on hand for each patient. So it empowers you to know exactly how many implants you should buy without over purchasing. And then it also allows you time to sit down and look through those cases to make sure you see how many implants per patient, which sizes are treatment planned, and just be more planful before meeting with a vendor. These reports are powerful because they can really help you hone in on your existing inventory and what you need or may not need to purchase. So if you can see on the procedure codes for prophies, for example, let's say you have a round number 100 patients coming in this month, and you go to do your inventory spot check, and you see you have the items that you need for prophy appointments, and there's more than like a quantity of 100, you might be just fine with most of the products. However, if you go to your shelf and you only have one box of mint flavored prophy paste and the quantity is 50, it's time to purchase, and maybe not feel too bad if you're able to get a price break purchasing 200 versus another 50. So great information that lives right at your fingertips within your practice management that can help you guide your purchases for forward looking, and then partner that information with maybe what a typical month of turnover is for your supplies. Working together from your schedule data also builds your team's knowledge of the practice, and it helps cross-train people in different areas, which I think is just one of those passive benefits that you don't realize you're acquiring more information about your practice until it's happening, and then all of a sudden it's just populated in your brain cells. So your whole team gains an understanding of material usage. Now, I know some practices might have someone who orders preventative or hygiene supplies. Someone else, the dental assistant, might be ordering the restorative, and you might have someone else altogether that might be purchasing infection control, disposables, et cetera. So you can bring in as many people into this process for a quick gathering, a quick meeting. It could be during your morning huddle. It can be on a Friday. It can be on the days that everyone's decided for the practice that they're going to place orders. But it gives your team a quick understanding of quantities that every person in their unique role has. And the first month, it won't sink in. It'll be too much information that doesn't pertain to each individual's responsibilities. But over time, we learn through osmosis, really, right? We hear the information, we gain an understanding of what your colleague's doing in the hygiene department, what the dentist prefers for certain cases and materials. And so it really does build awareness of supplies for the whole team. Again, it better prepares you for vendor negotiations, and just to have more confidence knowing that the supplies you're purchasing and the quantities you're purchasing are those that you're going to actually use. It's educated guesswork, right? And trying to predict from your schedule and your history and your inventory, kind of a dance of all three of what you actually need to purchase and why. So it gives you clarity on those needed and budgeted products. And if the office manager or someone has a question about quantities that are purchased, like, hey, why did we need 20 boxes of that? Well, you can say, gosh, we used 15 last month, and we have 46 more patients scheduled this month. So it really kind of helps educate the whole practice and elevates the information that circulates. And then I mentioned it builds confidence to ask about bulk purchase deals, vendor cross promotions. A lot of times there'll be a sister company to a vendor you're working with that might offer products that they hadn't mentioned before, because you may not have been aware that someone in the practice purchased those products before. So nice opportunity to be aware of bulk deals, vendor cross promotions, and even free goods. So the first KPI, I think, is one that every practice probably gets in in one format or another, and that's their supply budget versus feedback on what they actually spent. Okay, so we're not comparing what you spent to anything other than the budget that you were given. We do this in our own households, and it's nice to see if you're hitting the mark on your supply spend for the month, or if you're over by how much and why, or if you're under. It might feel good, right? You might be under that last couple of days of the month, and you're ready to place an order. And so when we look at it periodically and spot check through the journey every month, we can pick up on those anomalies in spending. But this is a real common one. Someone will say, you've got $1,000 to spend this month, stick to the budget. My word got cut off here, but we want to track each office's supply spend to determine if it aligns with the budget. And if you don't have multiple offices, you have different departments, right? So it could be, $750 hygiene, or restorative, $250 hygiene, for example. I'm using numbers that are too low, but easy math to remember on an evening. When those numbers come in and you are over or under, the KPI is intended to track that over time, right? To see what you're trending at. If you're trending always under, we can take a look at the budget and say, why are we budgeting more? Maybe it was based on more patients. Maybe there was another doctor. Maybe hours have changed and it needs to be, refined. Or why aren't we budgeting enough? Are we seeing more patients? Is a marketing campaign being really effective? Why are we constantly spending $2,000 instead of $1,000? And yet we need to place an order at the end of every 2 weeks, so we know that there's not a lot of waste. You can prioritize the highest overspend department or office, practice, and then you can ensure that people adhere to the budget and improve their cost control by revisiting how the budget's set, which we just spoke about, and communicating the focus area to the team. So if at the end of a certain time period, there are 12 boxes of gloves sitting on the shelf, another 12 in transit to the practice, and you only use an average of 6 per month, we've got an inventory issue, right? And so by tracking your budget every month and seeing if you're over and under, this is really indicative and helpful to review and adjust your monthly budgets to see especially if it's not enough, and you can identify the reason why it's not enough. And then if you have procurement software, purchasing software, that can also help you monitor your spending. So you could see, for example, at a given time frame, if you had a budget of $1,000 and at the end of week 1, you placed an order for a couple of vendors, it could show you that you were now at 70% of those dollars left. Or conversely, it would say you've spent 25% of your budget. At the end of week 2, maybe you should be at 50% of your budget. Maybe you do a very large monthly order at the top of the month. And so you might be at 60 or 70% at the beginning of the month. And then you can see additionally needed products throughout the rest of the month. But on the software, it will show you where you're at toward your total supply budget for that month. Let me show you an example. So to get started talking about purchasing or procurement software platforms, there's a lot of them. I've put on the screen 7 of them that I'm most familiar with, that all have great support, and that any practice can reach out and get a demo of the software. They have different levels of product offering, different looks and feels, and different just workflow within the software. But I wanted to show you a couple examples of the companies that are out there. All the softwares you can shop for supplies on. So that's kind of table stakes and the base offering of purchasing software. That makes sense, right? However, They vary widely once you start to take a look at what they have for stock or at the ready reporting or analytics. They vary by how many vendors they integrate with. And when I say integrate, it's kind of like what is represented to shop from, like the stores or the vendors to shop from. Because it isn't just your distributors, but it's also your direct companies that you can purchase from that are not distributed but sold direct. So things to take a look at and features and functions of software that I think are worthy of asking questions about during demos are the vendor integrations. So make sure that your top vendors, and you can find your top vendors by either working with your office manager or requesting your office manager reach out to the accountant. Just say, who are the vendors that we spend, supply vendors that we spend the most money with every year? So you probably have a national or regional distributor or two. And then you might have a couple direct companies. If you are offering any specialties, you might have an implant company or ortho, endo kind of company. And then there's a lot of direct companies, of course. You might have rotary or whitening, et cetera. So to get an idea of your top vendors before you get a demo, to make sure you can ask those questions, because if your top 10 are not fully represented on the platform, it's going to be an exercise that ends in frustration, right? So ask about vendor integration. The purchasing workflow is something nice to get a handle on how many clicks, what area of the platform, how simple is it, right? Everyone operates a little bit differently. So how does it feel to you and your team to see the software? Does it seem intuitive to you? There's data analytics and reports that are baked in that everyone can typically see with a couple clicks of the button. Just like your practice management software should have a robust offering of reports and filters that you can quickly on your own without doing a special request or any further development at your practice's expense. You should be able to take a look at your data in different ways in reports. Some platforms go to a next level. They offer invoice reconciliation features. So when something is ordered, right, the order gets communicated to the vendor ships the product, somebody gets the box, opens it, grabs the packing list, and there's an invoice that's either in the box or comes separately or comes digitally. And so the person unpacking the order can then actually go log in. One, they're physically verifying all the products are there and they've got the shipping list, which also, if they're in agreement with that it's accurate, they can go and log in and they can reconcile that shipment. They can say, yes, I ordered 8 of these, 5 of these, 4 of these, 2 of these, and they can say, yes, I'm receiving everything. So there's a cross check for that. There's inventory management, where you can set minimums and maximum levels of certain products that you always want to have on the shelf. And then you can run reports to say, gosh, you always wanted 5 of those. The last couple orders were received and we only have 4 on the shelf. And that will show you the variance. Some of the platforms offer a bill pay feature. And then there's a couple I'm aware of that, especially for larger groups or larger practices, you can track your lab cases. So all of them you can shop on, but if there's other nuances for your practice, you want to make sure to take a look at your top vendors at a minimum and then engage in that demo and ask the questions for the people that will be doing the shopping. Here's an example of a dashboard when you first log into a procurement software. I've got some other slides where these images are blown up, so I don't want anyone like squinting too hard. So there'll be a couple of follow-up slides. You'll be able to see the detail. But I wanted to give you an idea or a sense of what you would see when you log into a platform. In some way, shape, or form, it would have certain metrics that before you shop, or if you're not interested in shopping but want to kind of take a look at tracking a previous order, or taking a look at your shopping cart, taking a look at a secondary formulary of a product because maybe you heard from a vendor that day that a couple of your top items are on back order or are being recalled, things like that. So when you take a look at the platform, we've got pending requests from a team, pending orders. So that's kind of keeping your cart open throughout the week. People hand you Post-its or they text you different things if you're in an ordering position, and you're always kind of gathering all the information that the team needs based on the other members of the team and their schedule and the time that they have dedicated to count stuff in inventory. So you can keep your basket or your shopping cart open just like you do on, say, Amazon.com or Instacart or something like that, right? And add to it until you're ready to submit the order. So then you can see recent orders, unreceived orders you've placed but they haven't shipped and been received yet. Requests for quotes, that's specific to this software. And then savings based on the market. And active suppliers, right? These boxes talk about how the practice is spending money over time, saving money over time, how many purchase orders or orders they're placing. And this is for a quarter. I see this is January through April. So this is 3 months. And you can see, for example, in January, there were 2 orders placed. In February, there was 2. Again, in February, there was 3. Again, in February, there was 2, right? So we've got 7 orders in February. And then in March, it goes back down to 4. You've got top suppliers by amount spent, total items, and top items by quantity. So just an idea, you can customize your dashboard for things that matter the most to you and your team, or the things that you look up most frequently. For the software, or any shopping software, you can submit orders by referencing previous orders. So if you have a standing infection control and PPE and disposable order that you tend to purchase the same stuff, the same quantities every month, you can just pull up last month's order and resubmit a new fresh order, which can save you a lot of time. It can also just pull up the quantities from your last month's order. You can use that as an inventory check, print it off, go to the cupboard or walk around the different ops or your storage area and do counts from there. And you can also shop by previous invoices. You can create and utilize custom shopping lists by person or department. Many of you might already do this on distributor websites or in your personal life on different websites, but you can have a shopping list that's called hygiene, or you can have a shopping list that's called sterilization area. You can have them reference physical areas of your practice and use those as lists. They can be assigned to a person or a small team of people. Maybe there's 2 people that order infection control products, so they have access to that shopping list, or it's called Stephanie's PPE list. And so those are the items I know that I'm responsible for keeping tabs on inventory. And so I have just come up with my own custom list that I reference. There's also preferred products. So you can mark products as preferred from the global shopping market that you're on the software. And you can also mark your formulary products. Formulary not meaning pharmaceutical formulary, but formulary meaning a strict offering of products that your practice tries to purchase from that list. And then there's alternative lists that you can build for back order situations. We often call that a secondary formulary. A secondary formulary is there as a safety net for things that are unavailable. Maybe they're on back order, maybe they're transitioned or phased out from a manufacturer. They might have a long lead time. Perhaps you purchase something direct from a direct company and the lead time, you just can't seem to get ahead of it, and you're rescheduling patients, right? So you might have a secondary product that is a secondary preference to the one that you're experiencing those issues with. So a secondary formulary or a back order, an alternative list can be a backup list to what you have. You can stay on track with utilizing budget features. So you can actually go in your software. You can enter your monthly supply budget for the entire year of 2025. You can do it just month by month, quarter by quarter, however you're comfortable. And then you can adjust on the software. And again, that will alert you typically if you're over budget or approaching or near budget. You can set it at 90% that you want a warning on your email that you're almost over budget, or almost to budget, more accurately. You can set up stock or custom reports to be automatically emailed to you, the office manager, the owner dentist, etc. So if there are reports that you want to see on the 5th of every month for the previous month, you can automate those too. You don't have to go in and request them every time. Here are a couple of those dashboard tiles, if you will. Spend over time. And again, this is set up as weekly. There's usually daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, etc. So you can see your average spend. This one isn't too dynamic because it's from a demo account. The second box, though, the second tile, I think is really helpful. These are top items by quantity. So it might not be the most expensive items you order, but it's the items you order the most in quantity. Now, this was for a week. So we've got, 6 burrs, some gloves, Reliax, more burrs, and more gloves. This can be helpful when the time frame is longer, like a month or even a quarter. But you can see if there's an opportunity to consolidate. For example, if both of those gloves, that one is nitrile, here the second one down, and the last one is latex. But if they were both nitrile, you could probably take a closer look and say, why am I buying 2 different kinds of nitrile, 2 different brands, for example, if that were the case, at 2 different price points? And is there an opportunity to consolidate to one nitrile glove in inventory at one price? A couple of the other tiles blown up for you to see are top items by amount spent. So like we talked about earlier, if you wanted to get a comparative bid on your top 50 supply items, this is where you could, just with a click of a button, set the time frame for like the last 6 months, your top 50 items by spend. And this is where you would get the biggest swing of the needle if you were to find an alternative or a price that was an improvement to what you're paying now. So here we've got the largest, again, these are weekly reports, but the largest amount of dollars spent on Reliax, Impergum, 2 3M products, now Solventum. Then you've got Futurabond, air water syringes, and Profi angles. And so you can see in a week's time that those were your top items, but over a month or a quarter, those are the ones that you want to take a look at because you buy them a lot and you spend the most money on them. The second tile on this screen for this demo account was suppliers by amount spent. So like we were talking about, if you don't have software and you go to your office manager and work with your accounting team on the general ledger to see who have they spent the most money with supply vendor wise, you can get that information that way, certainly. But if you had software, you could also dice up the information in your data and just say, show me my top suppliers over this last year. This, again, the data was only for a week. Henry Schein, Ultradent, Patterson, and Zest. So you can take a look at this data if you have a software or if you don't. The second KPI that I want to talk about is primary and secondary formulary. We spoke about it a little bit. This is used to track formulary usage or the products that the practice wants to purchase because they made a decision or a consensus on price or vendor or dealer, etc. So those products are your formulary products. People can have just a printout, an Excel document of what these are, and it can be a quick guide reference for anyone placing orders. It could also be obviously already marked as formulary items or preferred product items in a software. Either way, you're tracking that you are purchasing and trying to stick to purchasing what everyone's agreed is the most responsible choice for the practice. It can help you build your purchasing power. if you're purchasing the same things from the same vendors, they are getting more of your business and are more willing to negotiate with you for reduced fees or reduced shipping or even a discount. And then it also reduces fragmented purchasing and expenses through one-time offers. So everyone's gone to a dental conference or had a rep stop in and or had a lunch and learn, and they buy 10 to get 2 or buy 5 to get 5, something. But what happens is that price that you paid once is different than when you reorder. And if it's a one-time offer on something that people have never used before and they try it and the majority or half the staff doesn't care for it, a mask, for example, what happens is you've bought 5 to get 5 and you're stocking 10, but most people aren't using it. It takes a very long time to go through that inventory for the people that do, or this is a high category for waste, are those one-time offers. A primary and secondary list of formulary preferred products allows quick adjustment to supply chain and price changes. So like we said, if there's a big price increase from your primary vendor for a product, and you have a secondary vendor that you're already working with, it is very quick to send a text or an email or just get on the shopping site and just double check that that there's an alternative, to see if there's an alternative or if the exact same apples to apples product is available for a different vendor as a backup. And then just a best practice, I think for most practices, is to have that standardized list of frequently used products, to check in with that list every quarter. Just make sure the team is still finding the quality acceptable and the clinicians are getting the clinical results they want and the handling features that they want. And if you do have a lunch and learn or attend a show and find something that's an improvement for patient care or price or quality, any of those, that you update that list so it stays current.
Stephanie, hi,
Yes.
it's Dr. Rowling. So we're on slide 16 and we have 15 minutes left in the presentation. So
Thank you.
Just wanted to give you that time update.
I appreciate that. And then the last is that when you have those best practices, you can bulk order for additional savings when you know the items and you have confidence that the team is going to go through those items. Formulary efficiency is exactly what we just spoke about. That's when everyone agrees to use a certain set of products and tries not to vary in purchasing products outside the scope of that list. This is just a best practice I want to highlight. Whenever you purchase more than 40% of your supplies 1 or 2 times, like items once a year, like I bought one thing one time this whole year, it's not on formulary and you might have needed it for one patient and that's acceptable. But if the amount of items that you're purchasing once or twice a year goes over 40%, it's worth stopping and reaching out to those vendors to take a look at the items that you're purchasing, because it seems like there could be some overlap and some waste involved. Also, when you have a formulary on the right side of the screen where it says category summary, you can take a look at how many manufacturers you are actually purchasing products from when you look at this data. So for example, on the very first line, exam nitrile gloves, the practice spent $29,000 on nitrile gloves, and they bought gloves from 9 different brands or 9 different manufacturers. Best practice would probably be more like 1 to 3 if everyone can use the same brand in the practice, different sizes, of course, maybe even different textures or different thicknesses, but the same brand. So a formulary can really drive compliance within categories. A third KPI is order frequency. Monitor and ask your vendors how often the practice places orders. You can get this off software very quickly. You can get this on from your accounting. You can see how many purchase orders or orders you're placing or how many you've paid in a time frame. But really, we're trying to optimize and streamline your workflow. So there's less orders placed in a month. A lot of practices, industry best practices say that purchasing 2 times a month is great. 1 is perfection. Other industries might have inventory turn and purchase, 6 to 8 times a year in different industries. With dentistry and patients, we always have those outliers that walk through the door that we weren't anticipating. And so we do have to order custom things. However, to optimize ordering, if everyone in the practice knows that they order on the 1st and the 15th, or the 1st and 3rd Friday, it can really, really help the whole team hold those orders, build those carts, and submit less to have less shipping fees, less small order fees, and more consistent levels of inventory. I really wanted to call out a best practice I recently learned. You have those big orders that get submitted, but then some practices are using a group text. So as they find things that they need or errors, products they found in their operatory that they put back on the shelf, et cetera, a lot of people are using group text for communication. Over communicating is better than no communication in this area. So Google Worksheets work really well. Or if there's a certain agreed upon spot in the office, whether it's the whiteboard in the break room or a binder up at the front desk, it just helps the practice minimize shipping and handling fees. It's just a quick image of how you can check the purchase order frequency. We saw this on a previous slide. This is a more involved slide, and this is nice when you have more than one practice and you have a lot of vendors, right? So you've got a distributor, and then here I've listed 25 vendors for this practice. Not uncommon, right? If you really stop to think about all the different direct companies you purchase from, as well as your distributor partners. And this takes a look at how many orders, so the small colored boxes in the grid are how many times that practice ordered from vendor number 1. For example, Office One ordered from vendor number 1 5 times. They ordered from vendor number 2 6 times, 3, 13, et cetera. And then following office number 1 all the way to the right, they placed 30 orders, and the average order they placed was $567. So this is over a year. So that's quite good. If you look under the grand total column, which is on the far right, you can see there's even a practice that has 117 orders in a year, but the average amount that they ordered on each order was only $229, so much lower. So they're ordering about 9, almost 10 times a month, and the orders are smaller. So if there was a shipping minimum, like if you had to have orders of 200 or more, you're in good shape. If it had to be 250 and more, this is a way to take a look at your total activity and figure out where you can start saving money on shipping. Another KPI is that small order count per location. Kind of bounces off of that last slide. Place fewer and larger orders, track and share this information, and monitor inventory levels to avoid emergency orders. Transit times from order to receipt. This is really evaluating, this KPI evaluates the predictability and confidence that you have in your vendors, right? So are late orders affecting your schedule? Are you disrupting your patient appointments? Are late issues being addressed? Are products coming like the very next day? So best practice is really to just partner with reliable suppliers to minimize delays after communicating through these issues, to avoid emergency reorders. Share the vendor cutoff time. So the time of day that anyone in the practice can place an order with a vendor where it's guaranteed, for example, next day or in 2 days, so that people know how to pivot with vendors that might have improved shipping schedules. And then you can use software to track your order status and also track shipments. Another KPI is your purchase order and invoice accuracy. It's a way to just ensure that your purchase orders and your invoices are matching, that you're working with the team to make sure that invoices aren't being paid for items you haven't received, or you're not overpaying for incomplete orders. And this is just like the workflow in the practice. So the best practice here is just to implement a 3-way invoice match. Regularly review invoices to catch price increases that don't align with your agreed upon price or a previous month's invoice price, or even a contract. And if you have software, you can also run a variance report by item. And you can also work with your distributors. If you have a sense or feel that, gosh, my gloves seem more expensive than they ever have been, reach out and partner with your vendors and your distributors to find out what might be happening. Maybe there was a communication on supply chain. Perhaps there's an item that was replaced, or it was just an annual price increase from their manufacturer. So purchase order and invoice accuracy. You can quickly see on the right that you can see that there's 23 products ordered. You can get all information about the products, a quick image. Software shows you what shipped, what was received, which is manually received by a team member. And you can see, what would be missing. On the left, it shows you the number of shipments and how many boxes, not necessarily different orders, and the dates that they went out and the items that were included in each one. KPI 7 and 8 are your total spend. So all the money that you spend on supplies by the supplier and by the manufacturer. This data is probably best viewed in longer blocks of time, like every 6 months or a year. And it can really show you an opportunity to partner with manufacturers that have programs. So everyone's familiar with buy get offers or free good offers. But when you spend certain dollar amounts with key manufacturers, say it might be $20,000 with a manufacturer that your clinicians prefer their products, you can turn on benefits through loyalty programs, partnership benefits like CE, education, savings opportunities that they can plug in throughout the year. And you can negotiate better terms to enhance your savings with that particular manufacturer partner. Again, you can work with your distributor and the data that they have to share with you. You can take a look on the manufacturer column here. You can see this is a data from Henry Schein. So you've got some Henry Schein brand items, some items from Dentsply, Kerr, Metrics, Total Care, etc. So again, when you consolidate the number of items you buy that are offered by Schein, for example, you might be able to have better pricing. Or if you see something from Kerr Corporation and you see a second offering by Metrics Total Care, which is under the Kerr umbrella, you might be able to build your spend with that particular manufacturer to get benefits for all their other products for your practice. You can automate these reports for specific vendors if you're trying to hit certain pricing tiers with manufacturers easily in software, and you can also run the reports from your general ledger. I'm going to skip over this slide just because it's detailed and I know we've spoken a lot about it. My favorite KPI to track over time, I think, is a wonderful window to the health of your practice. And that ensures that supply costs stay within an industry standard of 4 to 6% of production or adjusted production collections. So whichever metric you choose, again, it's just pick one and stay consistent, right? So you're measuring the same thing over time. It's supply cost as a percentage of your production or supply cost as a percentage of your collections. So this keeps supply expenses proportionate to your practice revenue or your practice collections. And it gives you a chance to regularly review your cost and your budget over time. You can track this manually or with software. I have lots of clients, we do it manually. And it allows you to establish approval parameters to control expenses on large purchases. So historic supply data enables more accurate budget planning and forecasting. And then when you measure what your supply spend is against production or collections, over time, you can see how a lot of the efforts within the practice from the team trickle down into this one metric, which is why I like it so much. So this is an example of manually tracking for first quarter of this year, a group that I work with that has 4 locations. So you can see on the left, by location, we track production by month by practice, and then we track supply spend by month by practice. So we can see kind of monthly, month over month trends. We can add those up by the quarter. And then on the right side of the spreadsheet, you can see the first quarter. Then I take all the months of production for each practice, have those across practice 1 through 4, all of the months, January, February, and March, of their merchandise spend per practice per location. And we just do a simple division, and you can see practice 1 was running at 3.5%. And the one that's most efficient is practice 4 at 2.5%, but averaging the total, this group of 4 runs at 3.1%. Now that's outstanding. They've made a lot of effort. They brought in software. They've they've gathered their team, kind of rallied around a preferred product list, and they've eliminated a lot of waste. So this is a wonderful example, but again, 4 to 6% would be industry standard. And you can see each practice or your practice over time improve with these metrics. Kind of brings all of the efforts from the other metrics and other KPIs kind of pulls them all together. And then the result of that KPI kind of shows the result of all the efforts.
Stephanie, we're at the end of the time. Do you want to give one case, and then I will go ahead and give the code so we can end on time? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I've got a use case. It was the numbers that I just showed you, that practice as a group practice. They streamlined their products to 5 main suppliers. They were kind of all over the place. Each practice was buying from their own distributor and their own suppliers. And what we did was we got consensus to consolidate some of the supplies there to different suppliers. We reduced the spend. They started out at around 4.5%, which also is within industry standard, right? But they got down to 3.1, and that only took them 4 months. And then they're locked in. All this stuff is accessible on their software. They created a formulary, and they maximized a couple manufacturer partnerships. So where they were buying their bond and their cement and their impression material, they added a couple different product categories, which brought their total spend with that manufacturer. It bumped them up a tier, and they saved a discount. They received a discount on all the products from that company. So that helped all of the practices. So that was fun to participate in. So in conclusion, KPIs can reveal opportunities for improvement within your existing buying behavior, as well as reveal progress and savings over time. So I'd encourage you to implement a few of these practices into your monthly ordering workflow. Really get the team understanding and empowered with the information that you gain from those numbers, and add more KPIs as you become familiar with the impact of each one. And then just remember to have fun tracking these KPIs and the healthier practices. There's new approaches can improve profitability and awareness, training and understanding, and benefit your team by reducing stress and saving time. Thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead and put the code up on the screen. I'd like to get a couple questions past you here. So if you can just allow me 1 second, I'll bring the code up for everyone.
Sure.
While they're entering their code, we can go ahead and address a couple of these questions. So on the screen, you'll see the passcode to enter into your quiz, 257385. And we're going to take a few moments here to look at these questions. From Dr. Moreno. Hi, Dr. Moreno. Do you recommend to give the assistant a bonus if you notice an improvement in their purchasing? And if yes, what would the percentage be that you recommend? And if no, what would you recommend?
Gosh, that's a great question. And I see a lot of different things that offices do. Some offices are taking the team approach because they have input from a lot of the employees and the team. And so they have a practice goal for that month. So everyone's habits contribute and then everyone wins. Some do something as simple as, a catered lunch or gift cards. And then I haven't really seen an assistant get a percentage. I think that was built into that question. But I do think that there could be, when you take a look at the numbers from your practice, you could have an incentive portion of their compensation that is presented and agreed upon at their review. And then you'll know when, for example, in my last use case, if you are currently at 4.5%, you'll know that saving 0.5% might save you, for example, $30,000. And so if they got from 4.5 to 4, or 4 to 3.5 on those increments, you could certainly offer an incentive tiered bonus program.
If you had an assistant, let's say, and I have a case I can share with you. I was consulting for a very large dental hygiene school, and they had an increase in injuries, sharps injuries. When I came on, where they had a history of just very low. And when I started interviewing the instructors, they said, the needle caps are really sticky. We're not sure what's going on, but the students are sticking themselves. And I went to the assistant who ran the ordering, and it turned out she made sort of a unilateral decision, because she was being bonused, to choose a very inexpensive needle, and this was causing a rise in their injuries. So how do you oversee that if you are, I don't think you can give them free rein, right? But how does that work?
Yeah, I think consensus on quality is critical. Clinically and non-clinical products that don't walk out in the patient's mouth, but might end up in the trash, like a glove, for example. If people have a high level of frustration, we have to encourage feedback. And whether we document that and then discuss it as a team, or simply, if there isn't consensus on a product, to take a look at an alternative.
Great.
And that can easily be swapped out of a preferred list. You can work with your suppliers to get a better quality product. And like you said, on the needles, I would think there would have been complaints along the way too. So you can't have one team member working against the greater good of the practice, right?
Right. I think in their case, they just had not looked at the injury log and put 2 and 2 together until we start asking questions. Here's a great question from John. What percentage do you expect for a perio office?
I'm not sure if I know perio specifically. It might depend on the procedural mix, right? Because if it's high implants, you can pull out implant and specialty vendors out of your supplies. So on the supplies, how many operatories you have, that still should be, the 4 to 6 range. But when you mix specialty in there, it would really depend on your procedural mix and the quantity of patients and some other indicators that would supersede or override really your supply spend as a percentage. Because you're producing more, but you're spending more on some specialty vendors. So it might be worth it to track specialty vendors in that case as like a sub-tracking.
What percentage should be for general office spending budget?
Usually it's 4 to 6% of production or adjusted collections.
Excellent. Any more questions for Stephanie? Stephanie, thank you so much. Anything you'd like to say in closing, and we'll bring Holly up to present her portion.
No, simply thank you to Dental CE Academy and Curve and Dental City for having me tonight. And I've enjoyed spending some of your evening together. Thanks.
It was excellent information. Thank you so much. We look forward to your next one next month. Thank you. Okay, everyone, we are going to bring Holly over for presentation from Curve Dental, and then we will bring Dental City on. Again, the code is 257385. Holly, do you want to go ahead and log in? There she is. She magically appeared. All right, everyone. My honor to introduce you to Holly here from Curve Dental. She's going to talk to you about their software, and then we will transition over to Jordan with Dental City. Thank you. And Holly, I do want to remind everybody at the top of the screen, please tap on that. That will take you to information about Curve Dental. And also in your course folder, there is a one-sheeter on more information. And you can take that back to your dental practices as well.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm going to walk you guys through a small introduction to Curve. And like Dr. Rowling was mentioning, please do click the banner that does come across the top of your screen if you're wanting to learn more. So when it comes to Curve, we really are an all-in-one solution for your practice. I'm going to hit some things that Stephanie talked about too. So as far as just the user interface, we really like to keep it simple to where it's really the last thing that you're having to worry about is to, when you are changing, to really revamp your whole understanding of a software. So if you notice, there is a schedule that's going to be completely customizable to how you want your layout. And you also have to the very right-hand side, a sidekick. So this is a beautiful thing when it comes to a software like Curve, because we created it to be simple enough to where it's not icons you have to memorize. It's exactly the area that you need to go in less than 1 to 2 clicks, as Curve is a no 1 to 2 click system. So it's very limited touching. Now, as far as just the schedule and sidekick, again, this is the user interface, but we also have patient engagement included. So we can really eliminate the need for a third-party software to really communicate back and forth with your patients. So you have two-way texting. Patients can image or send you images, rather. You can send it straight to their record to save it. So it's not any downloading or uploading that we're normally hearing. You also have campaigns, which are automated messages, whether that is to get reviews out, to remind patients about appointments, send forms out prior to arrival, or really just getting those patients back in with overdue recare or unscheduled treatment. We'll have you covered there. On top of that, let's think about the patients like ourselves. I'm in Eastern time, so right now it's 9 o'clock. If I had an inkling of, wait, I need to schedule my dental appointment, that's something that if you have Curve in your office, I would be able to request an appointment after hours. Also great for, the recare purposes, but all of that is again included in our system. Now, to really focus on the charting aspect, we have a full comprehensive charting imaging already built into our system. We really can create forms around specific needs like consent, health history, and also have that digitalized. We have treatment plans that we can go into in chairside and simplify the language. So you actually have a higher acceptance rate, but also it's not more just digital. You can print as well. We like to say you can be as digital as your patient base allows you to be. And then on top of what just Stephanie was talking about, really you're wanting a system that has your reports to where you really can control that data to understand what is happening within your clinic. So we have our pre-populated reports to the left-hand side under different categories. We allow you to create your own reports, very easy. You don't have to call us to be specific in your needs that day. And also on top of just your normal data reports, we also have analytics, some like a practice review where you can really see the height and health of your practice just by a glance. You also can drill down with certain other reports, like the one I have right now is a treatment plan dashboard. So these are the popular ones we see with offices, and there's more where this comes from here. But on top of just having all of your necessities throughout the day, we also want your staff to have a great experience with Curve, or really just the system in general. So on top of just our support, we also have our own built out AI. So I'm sure everyone has used ChatGPT before, or at least have been knowing of what it is. So we actually created it specific for our software. So you can actually ask a question, it prompts you with the answer, and even shows you a reference if you are a visual learner like myself. I love this part of chat, or Curve AI rather. But again, it's all included in your system. Every user will have that. And if that wasn't good enough, we also have our own mobile app. So again, we're not a patient engagement software, we're a practice management software. But because we do have our own patient engagement, we created something like you would normally get in a third party, which is a mobile app. It comes with your system. You can see things like your actual clinic hours, your layout, your appointments. You can text back and forth with patients, easily able to see exactly what's going on with them, and even pulling up a patient record. So seeing their images, which is something different than a normal patient engagement will offer you on their mobile app. Since we're all inclusive, you're actually going to be getting the data like you would if you were just logging in to Curve. But all in all, that is the highlight of tonight as far as our cloud-based practice management system, Curve. So if you are interested in doing an even more deeper dive demo with someone like myself, do again click on the link above your screen, and we can also start answering questions.
For Holly. So if you tap on that screen, I'm sorry, if you tap on that banner at the top of the screen, it is not expired. You're going to see information on Curve Dental and how to request a demo. You can also see an ebook, a report that you can download as well. And in your course folder is a document. If you'd like to take it back to your practices, also, if you tap on the banner at the top of the screen, you can save it to your device and take that back to your practice tomorrow and share it with your team. Any questions here? How hard is it to transfer from Dentrix to Curve?
Oh, good question. So we do actually, Dentrix is one of our most popular conversions. Now, when it comes to the process of converting, you actually will have an account executive that will run through every single detail, because we do not want to lose your data. We actually don't ever lose your data, but it is very easy because of the way that we do our conversions. It's a very methodical way. And we just make sure you never lose your data, but also you have a better experience when it comes to your training and the customization as well.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Well, we want to thank you for being here this evening, Howie, and thank you everyone for staying on for this portion. And we'll go ahead and invite Jordan to join us from Dental City. And at the top of the screen, we're going to put a banner there where you can order a free sample of gloves, a free box for your practice. So there's a blue banner at the top of the screen there. If you tap on that and submit a request, you can get a free box of gloves. And who does not like free? Thank you, Jordan, for being here this evening. And thank you to Dental City for supporting the program. Everyone, this is Jordan Lorenz, and he is going to talk to you about Dental City.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Stephanie, for a fantastic program. Really some very useful information and very relevant to the interactions that many of our practices have with us on a regular basis. And thanks also to Curve for sponsoring a wonderful CE event. So a little bit about Dental City. We've been a supply distributor for the last 31 years. We're located right here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we're still a privately held organization. So the same three owners that started the business from their parents' basement are still the guys that own it today. So it's one of those kind of great stories that, now we've grown to serve practices across the country, 20,000 practices, in fact. And we just continue to grow. And with that, we've really been able to put our focus in on that supply chain and distribution that Stephanie talks so much about. With partnerships like we have with Curve, where they can focus on other key portions of your practice, it allows us to really put our energy and effort, our investment into our warehouse, our distribution center. So what we've done over the number of years is we've now instituted 21 robots that are running around our warehouse with a fantastic warehouse team that really focus on getting the practice the right stuff at the right time in order to keep your practice running efficiently and profitably. And you should have, no hiccups with your supply chain. That's the goal. Without the supplies, it's really difficult to see your patients. And we definitely see us as an extension of your supply closet. And that's why we really strive to get the right things to you at the right time with 2-day shipping across the country and same-day shipping, like Stephanie mentioned in her program. We've also done some things like our Keys to the City member benefits program for those practices that have been loyal Dental City practices for quite some time. We want to reward people for that, and that's why we've instituted a program like that. And then Stephanie talked about the procurement platforms. Well, we do have our own procurement platform. At the same time, we really strive to meet the customer where they want to be met. And that could be on any one of the multiple platforms that Stephanie mentioned today. It could be on dentalcity.com or with one of our fantastic salespeople that are very knowledgeable about the practice and the supplies that you'll need to do your business. Which is why today we wanted to just make a simple offer, which is to give us a try. And you can either scan the QR code, click the link, or visit the link down below. Give us a try with using one of our private label nitro gloves for free. Give us a test on what is it like to receive product from Dental City? How long does it take to get there? Really see if we can put to practice exactly what I'm preaching. And hopefully if we do that, we have an opportunity to earn more of your business. And we really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, really appreciate your time tonight and spending some time with us. Thank you.
And a reminder, tap on the blue banner at the top of the screen to learn more and access a complimentary box of gloves for your practice. And you do have information about Dental City in your course folder as well. I want to thank you for being here this evening, Jordan. And thank you to Dental City for supporting the program. It was really just such a great job that Stephanie did, and you as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, everyone. Any questions before we adjourn? Again, I would recommend tapping on that banner at the top of the screen and bookmarking it to your device. You can take it back with you to your practice tomorrow. If you do have any questions, please reach out to our sponsors this evening, Curve Dental and Dental City. And of course, Stephanie, if you have any questions regarding the CE course, her presentation is in your course folder as well, and you can contact her through her contact information. Thank you so much then for being here, everyone, and we wish you a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you. Now, Stephanie will be presenting part 3 on May the 1st, and you'll see that in on our registration page for May. We'll also be sending out notification to you. So thank you everyone for being here this evening. Have a great evening.